Hello, my friends. How are you today? I am so excited to be here again. Day 8, we are making it. I am still shocked I can make this commitment because, it's really hard to start something new, and it's really hard to just come up with these stories and recordings just on the fly, but here we are again. And so I never even got to finish my story again yesterday where I started. It all started with bed. So I didn't make my bed for a long time. Made it, didn't make it. And then once all my kids were done sleeping in my bed, because sometimes they would be asleep and I would get out of bed and I'd be down doing mom stuff or doing things with other kids, and there would be still a kid in my bed. So it just never ended up getting made for a long time. And then I was listening to this one, and I will find the name of it, but I was just listening to this one inspirational speech, and it was I think it was a commander, and he was talking about how basically the message that I heard was, in regards to making the bed, it's not about making the bed, but it was if nothing else I achieved for that day, if nothing else I set out, I can say I did something. So my day is not a failure. I did not succeed or didn't accomplish something. The fact that I got up every day and made my bed was this is how we started the day. I accomplished something. So now with all my pillows and throw blankets, I make my bed every day immediately after I get out of it. It's the first thing. I won't even go to the bathroom or anything. It's just bed's made, then it's off to the bathroom and shower and all the other fun morning activities. But yeah, just for some reason when I heard him speaking, it just resonated with me, and it was at a time where I was feeling a little bit worthless. I wasn't doing anything. The things that I was doing was for somebody else or their care, which is great, but it was just there was nothing that I was doing. It didn't feel like it. I know there were many things, but at that time it just didn't feel like I was doing anything for myself, or I was accomplishing the things that I wanted to do. And I would start to feel in this defeation kind of loop. And is that a word? Defeated? I don't know. Defeated loop. And I just, was okay, I'm going to take one step at a time. So again, it was for me, it was I had to be okay, today I'm making my bed, like a little kid, okay, I did it. And so that's the same thing with this is until this becomes a part of my non-negotiable habits, I need to over correct and be good girl, you did your work, you made a video, you did, you achieved your goal. And the same thing with my steps. It was okay, I did 200 steps. Okay, I didn't I had to really celebrate those things to almost condition myself okay, you did it, or be that's okay, today you only did 100, or you weren't able to, I just really had to reinvent the way I spoke to myself and the way I affirmed what I did. So I can set out this weekend I had certain goals and things that I wanted to achieve, and it was I have this tendency to okay, if I accomplish something, great. Yeah, that's almost expected. Okay, I did my 20K steps today. I did this, and it's but I haven't got to this. And it's almost the I didn't get to stuff gets more attention and more focus. And I know it has to because I want to get these things done, but it's I almost brush past oh, okay, yeah, I made my bed. I brushed my teeth. I put on face cream. I brushed my hair, all those little things that we just kind of forget that are those are conscious choices too. There are many people out in this world that choose not to brush their teeth, and it, and you're ew, or whatever it is, and so for me, I'm trying this year in 2024, I'm practicing celebrating the little steps, the little things I do that I often take for granted until perhaps, I can't do those things. I say that because it's my son's sick with the flu. And so he has been sick, and he's like I take for granted just being able to like sit and not cough, like, and I'm like, isn't that something how it takes you to have a different experience, to get taken out of your comfort zone, to taken out of your thing. And again, this is one, all my kids are super resilient, but like, this is one who's been tested a little bit more than most. And like, but he even was recognizing like how, if we just step out of our comfort zone, if we get out of our default system, if we get out of our just monotonous routines, but then like I'm a creature who thrives in a routine, like, so it's very conflicting. I get it. But just by taking himself out of being healthy, like not intentionally, but, life taking it out of him, maybe intentionally, because again, I still think that there's a school factor in there. I don't know. But, yeah, so I am thinking like, it is so interesting to get yourself out of your routine and to feel what life is like, and then it makes you appreciate what you had, or it makes you say, this is not working for me anymore. Like this is this maybe it never did work for me, or it's just not working for me now, or I don't see it working for me going future. It doesn't align with who I want to be in the future. And so I say that with like a story, again, deep to my heart. So I always get a little bit awkward when I reference Chris. I'll say significant other, I'll say my husband, my spouse, and I feel a little bit hesitant and awkward. And I really want this to be a platform where everybody realizes that their stories matter. Like your story matters, my story matters, my voice matters, my opinion matters, your voice matters, your story matters. Like, and I feel like so much of my life, I wanted to suppress my story. I wanted to create this narrative of who I thought you wanted me to be. And so my journey these last few years has taken me in a place of learning, and it is a very big learning process. It does not come natural, but learning to feel, number one, what am I feeling? Like what am I experiencing, and sitting with that. And then it's my job to articulate that in the most kind and honest way possible. Like, I know sometimes honesty can be mean, right? Like can sound mean. Like, like I'll use, my significant other as an example. I'm not saying this has ever happened, but I'm just going to say, okay, my significant other comes in and he's speaking to me and his breath is bad, right? And you're just sitting there dying, like, you need to brush your teeth. Like, you need to have Purell, or not Purell, but Purell in your mouth. You need to put Listerine, I don't know, gum, something. And I'm going to turn this off because I think I'm getting some messages, but anyways, okay. So, and it's like, how do you find a way to be like honest? Because it's like, I would rather somebody tell me my breath is humming than go out and around the world and everybody is like, her breath is humming, like, so, but then it's like, it's also like, if somebody's like, hey, your breath is bad, it makes you kind of feel bad. Like, you're like, oh my God, you're embarrassed, you're, whatever, at least, at least for me, that could be the case. So it's like, to learn how to kind of like navigate this, like, hey, I'm being honest. Now, granted, it's my opinion. Maybe somebody thinks the breath smells great. I don't know. But, like I don't know. So that's a weird kind of explanation. But like, even in deeper things, like if I found a challenge in doing that, like, or to say like, hey, there's something in your teeth, or, whatever it is, like, and you're being nice, like so I think that's been like the challenge for me is, number one, what is my truth? Like, that has been the biggest, like, challenge, has been to be able to like say, what is my truth? What do I want? How do I want my future to look like? Does it have to look like how everybody else's looks? Does it, like, what is it I want to do with my life? And so like finding a way to be honest. And so that again, like 2020 was just such a pivotal year for me for so many reasons, like prior to even the pandemic starting, and then everything that led, that resulted in it. And so again, like I say, for me personally, like the growth that I've experienced, the honesty with myself, the relationships that I have all benefited as a result of that pandemic, that getting out of my normalcy, and then being able to say, like, this is what I appreciated about my normal life, and these are the things that I would like to not go back to, when life eventually resumes. Who knew it was going to take so long? But I, like I said, it was so needed for me. So I am appreciative. I'm, grateful. Like I said, my family did not get COVID during that initial thing, and it wasn't even until Christmas last year the first person in my family got COVID. Actually, no, I think Chris had got it in that summer, and then Tyler got it in Christmas, and then Karina had got it over spring break. Bradley, his girlfriend, and I got it over summer, and then Dylan is still the super gene over here, So if he's got one thing, good, go for it, bud. You have that super gene. I thought I had it for a while too, but I did not have the super gene. I didn't get that sick or anything, but I did not. I got it. So, anyways, he, I get a little bit awkward when it comes to talking about my relationship with my significant other, because we are really struggling, and we have been in therapy since 2021, I believe. And I am so grateful for that experience, because the lessons I've learned in there, like, even though that is a couples therapy, it can be applied to any relationship, because a lot of the foundational problems that him and I have is in communication. We are very different people. As I said from the get-go, he was not my boyfriend. We were not like dating. We ended up getting pregnant. We were I was 22, he was 26, so we were two young kids who had really, really traumatic and unconventional ways of being brought up, and we had carried a lot of these wounds into this relationship. And then we had been both the products of divorce, and not that that was a bad thing, but it was also not something we wanted to do. So very early on we were like, okay, we're never going to get divorced, and these kind of things, we don't want our kids to go through this. And we shared that kind of common goal, which I think a lot of people do, right? You want this nuclear family. You want that mom and dad and this a son and a daughter, and all the the perfect family experience. But as we all know, life very rarely ever gives any of us that perfect experience. It gives the perfect experience that we need. And we just sometimes don't like that. We want the easy route. We want the TV show. We want the movie. We want the rom-com. And a lot of times life isn't that. So, I think our communication from the jump was never there. Like, it was never, like, we didn't know each other. At that point, maybe you'd seen him, before we were married, let's say 15 times or so, it just wasn't like this person that you dated for a long time and you got to like know their ins and outs and things like that. It was like learning on the fly, and it was really crazy, right? Because you were like, we got married in July, I'm working, he's working, I bought a condo, like, just, I'm pregnant, like, there's like, there's kind of like this like fear, but also excitement, because you're like, for me at least, like, okay, I didn't have the wedding, but then I'm gonna still have this baby shower, and I'm gonna have this baby, and I'm gonna, decorate the nursery, and, so there was still like baby clothes, like there's just kind of exciting things, even though like very abruptly my entire life had shifted. Like I said, I was intending to go, I don't even know if I even got finished that. I'm pretty sure I probably didn't, but I was intending to go backpack through Europe with a girlfriend and then one of her friends. So the plan was on July 23rd, I had a one-way ticket to Heathrow Airport, and we were going to take the train and backpack and hostel and whatever all throughout Europe. Now, in hindsight, I don't know how well I would have dealt in the hostel or dealt with carrying my backpack, but on a physical, kind of thing, I think at some point I'd be like, listen, I need a hotel. I need a good shampoo. I need to just be clean. I need to get this backpack off my back. Like, I don't know. I'm sure like the execution somewhere in there would have been like that, but like mentally it was and still is everything I need. Like, I am still taking that trip. I am not backpacking though. No. Maybe I'll take you guys along with me, but I am like, I just need this like a retreat just to go and find me. I remember my aunt was like, what? You don't need to go to Europe to go find you. Pay me the money that you're going to spend there, and I'll tell you who you are. And maybe she could have. She was pretty brilliant, and she was a great reader of people, and she knew me pretty well. But she's like, I'll tell you exactly what you need and exactly what your problem is. And, and she probably would have. But I was like, no, I want to go figure it out myself. I want to go and do my life my way. And, I'll come back when the money runs out. And so anyways, I ended up not making it there, obviously, because I was pregnant. But I used to joke like, Brad, you owe me a trip to Europe, but he doesn't. These are all my choices, right? Like, it was just a joke. Yeah, so I never made it to Europe. I married somebody quite young. I'm 22, right? And I granted, although I felt like an old soul, I was like, my aunties and my grandmama, would take me to bars at like 13, and I had braces, and they were like, don't smile, because I carried myself so mature, but you smile and, it's going to give away that you are not 21. And they'd be bringing me margaritas at the bars. And I'm like, what, like in hindsight, I'm like, I can't, no, this is not happening or whatever, but whatever, it did. I carried myself very maturely because at, 2 years old, I was basically a mother myself, and a full-time mom once my mom had left. So, it seemed natural to go into this role, although I knew it wasn't like something at that time I really wanted to do, but it was what happened. And so, I had to adapt and ebb and flow, and I was going to make the best of that situation that, was going to happen to me. So yeah, and we made the best of it. We, like I say, I think it was our, we didn't even really go on dates, but I think we went on a date, and like, we got in arguments. Like, we just did not communicate well from jump. And I always tell this funny story. I think I already said it, but I'm going to say it again. I gave him the wrong number on the when we met, because it's just, I wasn't looking for anybody serious. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't want to give anybody my number. I should have just said, no, I'm not giving out my number. But, I did what I thought at that time, again, was like the nicer thing was to just lie and give the wrong number. But, new and improved me would be like, I just don't think that I'm going to give you my number now, or find the nicest and most honest way of saying this, it would still probably be a challenge. I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I would even say in this situation, but, I have to work on like figuring that out, because if I ever come into this situation, I want to be able to be honest from jump and be like, no, this is not gonna, no, thank you. Have a nice day. And I still have that little bit of a tendency to be like, okay, sure, whatever you want, working on it. It's all a practice. But, yeah. So, during our marriage, you have one kid, then you have another kid, you have a sick kid, you have another sick kid, you have, an unexpected, like, there was always so much going on that we were just too busy to kind of like, at least I was too busy to like really delve into like my feelings about the relationship. You know, early on, my son was 2 and my daughter was not yet 1. And he had an affair, and I remember I went totally at first, like, and I think this is what bothered me most about the affair. Okay, so I'm a pretty observant person, especially people in your group, right? Like your small circle, you know. So if all of a sudden somebody starts using an unusual term or like a slang or something like that, I was like, oh, where did you learn that word? Like, and it was like not something you would learn like in the workplace. It wasn't appropriate, like work around the cooler talk or something like that. And he was like, oh, I don't know, maybe like TV. I'm like, they wouldn't say that word on TV. You know, it was back in the 90s, it was still a little bit more censored than it is now. And so I would say, where'd you learn that? And he would, you know, always like kind of like move around it, hustle around it. And I don't know, why you keep asking? And then he started kind of getting angry with me for asking. Okay. And then kind of other things just didn't match up. Other things didn't line up. And I just, you know, I just felt uneasy. And then one day he came home and he was like, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work with us. And I was like, okay, well, like what's going on? Why? He's like, I'm just not happy. I don't want to be here with you. I'm not happy. And I'm like, are you having an affair or something? No. And I'm just like confused. And I remember at that time, like looking at my kids and feeling like very desperate. And like, now I wasn't working. I was working kind of like part-time doing loans still, but I was like juggling 2 kids, 1 sick kid. Well, he was just kind of coming off the medicines at this point. But still like very sick, you know, like to me, still my, you know, he needed extra like nurturing, extra mothering. And then, my daughter, who, poor girl, she just absolutely hated me from the time she was born. Like, I swear she came out the womb and gave me a dirty look. She was like, ugh, I'm stuck with her. Like, I don't know what it was about it, but I love her. She loves me. But I swear that minute she was born, she was like, next, I want a refund. This is not my mama. Can't be. But she was definitely a daddy's girl. And I was like, that's great. I was a daddy's girl. And like, Brad is such a mama's boy. Like, this is perfect. Cause I can't be to 2 people at the same time, you know, like so it just kind of worked out. And she adored Chris. And so I just like to like abruptly, when I was like not expecting it, to like be told like, this isn't working, it's fine, like I got it. Like, it wasn't like on a like, wait, I thought we were this perfect couple. No, I got that, but I just didn't understand like the urgency and like just like, why now? Like, it was okay last week, but now no, like what happened, you know? And then I remember going into like a begging and a pleading, because part of me didn't want to go like have to work full time and put them in daycare. And like, I just started like panicking about what the future was going to look like without him. And I just was like looking at them and feeling sad that they were, you know, and I knew I could do it by myself. There was no question about that. I pretty much was doing most things by myself anyways, but like, just to like now have this solid confirmation that you were not gonna have this perfect family. And by the way, this is all gonna fall on you. So he, you know, like the way he said, he's like, well, I'm not gonna take care of you guys. You know, if there's any money left over after I've paid for my apartment and my stuff, then I'll give you guys money. And it was just like very much like afterthoughts. Like, he was taken care of and his desires were taken care of. And again, this is my side of the story, my interpretation of it. You know, he's, you know, I'm not trying to throw any shade or anything. This is, again, these are young kids dealing with really adult things. And I mean, not really young. He at this point was like 28 or 29, but still, like, you know, mentally, maturely, he was still pretty young. And so, yeah, so I remember going into like this whole thing where I was like begging and pleading, and I would do anything, like anything. I was like doing, you know, going above and beyond, and just like, I'm not a super physical touch kind of person. But like, I was just like smothering him in like love, and just in the day when I'd see him, and then when he was gone, I would just break down when the kids were in a nap, or go to the bathroom and just be like, oh my gosh, like my whole world is completely imploding. And it just started to kind of feel normal for the first time in a couple years. And I remember finally, like one day I was like, are you cheating? Like, what is going on? And finally he just confesses. And I was like, I knew it. I just knew it. And then I was pissed. I was like really pissed, because I was like, you let me do things with you, and I don't know who you are with, and I don't need her diseases, and clearly she has no moral compass if she's getting with you, who is like some married person with 2 kids. Like, what is going on? Actually 2 kids, and then another kid that he isn't a part of the life of. And so I was like, like that, like infuriated. I'm like, you jeopardized my life and my health and my safety. I had it. So like a scene from from a movie, I went into the closet and I opened we had a sliding glass door in like the bathroom. We had a couple sliding glass doors. We had 3, 1, 2, 3, one in the living room, one in the master bedroom, or primary bedroom, excuse me, and then one in the bathroom. And I remember going to the, so good. I remember going to the sliding glass door, and I remember just picking up, like out of the closet, picking up like things like this of clothes, and just chucking them out. And it was like, we were the first, you know, floor, but it was actually above a garage. So it was like, you know, it wasn't just to the ground. It was like raining, and it was going in the trees, and these beautiful redwood trees. I'm chucking them. His clothes hanging over there. Anything else I see, a shoe, I'm throwing it. And he comes in, because he's coming home from work, and he's like gathering his stuff, and he comes in, he's got a handful of his stuff. I have a shoe, I chuck it at him. I said, get out of here. You are not welcome here anymore. Because I had told myself, you put on the big girl pants now. This person is willing to not only hurt you emotionally, but they're okay with hurting you potentially physically. Thankfully, I didn't have anything or anything. But at this time, I was like, I could have AIDS, I could have HIV, I could have syphilis. Like, I don't know what nasty stuff I could be having right now. I don't need to be worrying about this as a married woman with 2 kids. Like, no, goodbye. And I remember, like, he was angry, very, very angry, and just screaming and screaming. And I just like grabbed him and I pushed him. I'm like, you are not welcome here anymore. He ended up leaving, taking his stuff. I threw the rest of it out the thing, and I was like, you can leave. You can come into this marriage with you can leave this marriage with what you came in, nothing. And he left, and I felt this huge just sense of a release. Like, I was like, after weeks of begging and pleading and compromising, and I was like, F that. I don't need that. Nobody deserves this kind of treatment. Like, you have been through enough hell in your life. You don't need to be going through this now. So he was gone, and I was like, we got this. Like, I was afraid I couldn't do this, but I don't care, because right now I feel so much peace. I don't know what's going to happen. I remember like a bill collector had called from him, and I was like, oh no, he doesn't live here anymore, but here's his cell phone. And if you do get a hold of him, let him know to call me, because he owes me some money too. Okay. But I remember like just being so like, nope, I'm not protecting you anymore. I am not coddling you anymore. I remember like calling up my dad and my brother, because those were like the 2 big ones, and explaining to them what happened. And I remember them being like, well, what did you do? And I was like, what did I do? So he went and had an affair because something I did? I was like, no, there is nothing I did. There is nothing I didn't do to deserve this. This should not be turned on me because he made a very poor decision. That's not my fault. So he leaves, he goes, apparently, like, I remember being so mad. He took my credit card. This one was like one that like set me off for a long time. He took my credit card. He went to Lake Tahoe on a vacation. He said he had to work, an overnight work job. Went to Lake Tahoe. I paid for this room with her. They went gambling. They had a fancy dinner. And I was at home taking care of 2 kids. So messed up. And I paid for it. So annoying. But anyways, so yeah. So that happens. And then Thanksgiving comes. And I remember loading up the kids in the car. And at this point, Chris hasn't even visited the kids. But sadly, Bradley is a very intuitive person. And he knew something was wrong. And so, like, and when something goes wrong, it goes right to his stomach. So, like, he was very, like, it wasn't like he was stomach sick or anything. He would not eat. He wouldn't do anything. He was very sick. So here I was, not only am I dealing with, like, just finding out my husband had an affair, making appointments to see if I'm healthy. Just now I'm dealing with the intuitive response on his little body. And of course, it's Bradley, who's already been through enough. So now it's pissing me off even more that like his actions have now resulted in, sickness to my child. And he hadn't come. He hadn't called to check on the kids. Karina was sad because, again, like I said, she was daddy's little girl. She didn't want to be stuck with me all the time. And we were making the best of it. I was taking them to the park still. I was starting, like, they would be in nap. I was just grinding out, like, trying to get more business. I was doing whatever I could do to, like, hold it together, hold the household together. I'm looking at the bills. So then it's Thanksgiving, and I don't want to be in the house alone. So I end up going up. My mom at that time had lived in Tracy, and they lived in a pretty big house. So I loaded the kids in the car, loaded their toys, packed us all up, and we got on the San Mateo Bridge, and we sat in the car for 3 hours because it was the day before Thanksgiving. And it was just packed with traffic. So we sat in traffic the whole way there. And I remember like trying not to cry because this was going to be like the first holiday that they would have without their dad. And, like it was just kind of sad. And not that they to this day don't even know or they don't remember it. So, but like, it was just like a new change that like I really wasn't wanting per se, but probably needed, and it was going to happen regardless. So I remember we went out there, we had Thanksgiving, and it was like the day after Thanksgiving, and he calls my mom, and he's like crying on the phone with her, and begging to like talk to me, asking like, do you think she'll take me back? Like, all this stuff. And I remember just sitting there, and I was like, said a couple bad words, but I was just thinking, here I am here, like, what do I do? Like, what do you want to do? And it's like I knew what I wanted to do at that time. At that one time, I was like, we've already come this far. I've got this. Like, I don't need anybody ever. Like, the way my life was presented to me, I don't need anybody. Like, want? Sure. Do they enhance my life? Absolutely. Need? Do not. I will be fine. Drop my butt off in an island. I'll be fine. Like, will I find pleasure in it while I do this? I don't know. Probably not. But I haven't found pleasure in a lot of the things, a lot of the situations I was thrust upon. And I've managed to find a way out, and without the help most times of anybody else, really, just myself to depend on. I mean, granted, I've had help from like teachings and learning. So like there have been tons of mentors that have influenced, but like really it's come boiled down to me. And so, yeah, I didn't need him. And at that moment, I was like, what do I do? And I remember just glancing over at my kids. And at this point, they were just happy. Like, I remember I was eating his little Cheerios and Karina was like hanging out in a bouncer. But I started thinking about how this was Thanksgiving and we had experienced it alone, and or not alone, but we had family, but we like weren't like a family. I remember thinking, okay, her first birthday is coming up and Brad's third birthday is coming up, and there's Christmas and there's New Year's, and if I say no, if I go at this alone, basically I'm robbing my kids of this opportunity to have both their parents with them at these events, and to not be like, okay, I'm going to get them Christmas Eve and you're going to have them Christmas Day, or, I'll have them the day before their birthday and you have them on their birthday, or whatever it is. It was like, in this situation, in this quick moment of time that I could think, I figured that 3 people's happiness would outweigh one's. And I didn't even know if Chris would be happy, but I knew in that moment he wasn't happy. He was remorseful for his own actions, or so it seemed. And I believed he probably missed his family. I believe he missed his kids, and maybe not me per se, but I do believe he missed his kids. And I think he took a look around at the situation and was like, what am I doing? Or maybe she was like, what am I doing? Because not only did I do that with his stuff, I remember I got into the car and it was like super early in the morning. I knew where she worked because like Chris was one of our clients' secretaries. So I drove down there and it was like a 45-minute drive. And I sat there and I waited for her to come out of the car. And I looked so strung out. I remember wearing a neon green oversized sweatshirt, had barely slept in days, had a big old ponytail on my head. And I came out hot. And I think she probably thought I was going to kick her butt. And I probably could have, but I did not. I just went up to her. I went real close to her face. I said, I want you to look at me. I said, no, look at me. Look at me in the eyes. Because this is the face of the mother whose family you just destroyed. I don't care what he did, but you're a mom and I'm a mom. And you need to sleep with yourself. You need to close your eyes and you need to see this face all the time. Because for whatever reason, I don't care what your story is, you thought that being somebody else's +1 over here was going to fulfill you. Great, you can have him, but I want you to always remember this face. And I turned away and walked away. She tried to be like, oh, but I didn't want to hear your story, but I wanted you to know whose family you just had destroyed. That's it. That's all. And I hope that she remembers that. Like, and still to this day, like I have a problem with like, when somebody has an affair, and I get it, there's all kinds of stories. I'm not even saying like, there's different degrees or whatever it is, but, and maybe sometimes people don't know, but it's just like, I've always taught my daughter, like, I know it will not be respected always to you, but I ask of you to always remember girl code. Like, you just don't do that. And for so many reasons. Number one reason is if he's going to do that with you when he has somebody else, he's going to do it to you, period. It's going to happen someday, some way, because there is a lack of respect, a lack of being able to be honest, a lack of, whatever it is, want a cake and eat it too. I don't know what their story is or reasons why, but I do know is like what I told my daughter is you have to be able to sleep with yourself and know that every night when you go to sleep that you made the right choice. And if somebody is pursuing you when they already have a girlfriend or they dated your friend before or whatever it is, then you need to have a conversation with your friend and say like, is this fine? We dated, I know you dated him, especially in middle school and high school. I mean, everybody, it's like a joke, but like these kind of things I think are really important. And I think like as women, we go through these phases where, you know, we get along on the playground, and then we get to middle school and we're adversaries again and rivals, and we're competing against each other. And then we become moms, and again, we meet on the playground, but now we're the parents. And again, we become very nice, and oh, you need a wipe, or oh, I'm out of diapers, or oh, here's this my kid loves this toy, or you know, whatever it is, we become kind again on that playground. And I think most of us stay there. Like, I don't work in a work environment or where I have to go into work. So I do hear stories where there's toxicity, or sometimes even at the gym, I vaguely hear of stories and how there's kind of cliques, but I just kind of stay out of it. So I'm not really privy to that information. Like, I just pop in like a little fairy and like, hi, and smiling, and, you know, like, I'm not in it. So I'm not in it. And thankfully, I don't want to be in it. If it is there, don't let me know. This is my happy place. Leave me alone. But I think, you know, one of the cool things is just like I said, when I've had the experiences, like I'll say Dylan's, because this was the time, like, so many mothers and families rallied around us when Tyler had baseball practice. And I remember everybody was aware of his peanut allergy, and like the parents would be like, oh, okay, we haven't had this, or we're not going to pack this. Like they would go above and beyond to make sure that he was safe and I felt safe. And maybe we were being extremely hyper vigilant. But I always figured, okay, if you're hyper vigilant, what's the worst thing that can happen? But if you aren't, and you're just kind of vigilant or half butted, and what's the worst case can happen? He can die. So I'd rather live, when it comes to my kids' safety and my sanity, I'd rather live a little bit more on the crazier hypervigilant side than to deal with the small, maybe, but very real potential of dying. Like, sorry. So anyways, to go back to that, is like, moms can be very nice to each other, and women can be very nice, but we can also be very mean to each other. And, you know, that's an unfortunate thing, because, you know, I don't know if we just see each other as competition, or, you know, what it is. Like, we're just born to, you know, find things to rip each other down about, or, you know, instead of being honest about, like, you know, catty things, like, you know, in the gym, like somebody wasn't invited to a dinner, and, you know, and instead of being like, hey, I heard there was a dinner, you know, would you guys mind if I came? Or, you know, everything. It was like, you created all this drama, and how dare you not invite me, and calling the restaurant and canceling the reservation, and threatening people, and saying that you're going to get them fired, and telling people, like, how dare you not invite me, and you better not go to this. I mean, what? Like, where is this coming from? I don't know. It's craziness. But I think it's all resolved now. But you know, just sometimes we could just be a little mean, and it's not, you know, like, it's better to just be honest. Like, in that situation, if she would have just been like, hey, you know, like, was there a reason I wasn't invited, and deal with that. Like, if somebody was like, yeah, we don't like your bad attitude, then you can go home and do some self-reflection, be like, okay, am I being a bad attitude? And I don't think so. So make no changes, or be like, maybe I have been coming in a little hot, a little mean, whatever. So anyways, back to Chris and I. So yeah, that is how we started. And then, you know, through the years, we're both good parents. I will say, you know, I was the primary parent. You know, he is not aware of many of their classes or teachers or things like that. But he did have his strengths. Like, you know, I was busy being the disciplinarian. I was busy being the, like, get your homework done. And he was fun. You know, he was fun dad. And there were times that I was very envious of that, because I wanted to be fun mom too. And there just wasn't time to be fun mom and disciplinarian. And I was like, you know, we had our own, you know, but I'm not doing 360 flips on the trampoline, or, you know, doing like certain things that he would do, you know, go down the streets with the wiggle cars with no helmets, you know, like, you know, he was fun dad, and I'm glad they survived fun dad's experiences. And, you know, like, he would help coach, he would help, you know, do things. Like, he was very involved. Like, a lot of times it was by my courage. Like, he was, you know, judging the way somebody was coaching. And I'm like, if you don't like the way they're coaching, go coach yourself. and then he like, to him and another dad took it to heart and they became coaches, and then it just evolved and he ended up coaching all of the kids at some sport or another. And so he was able to do those things. And he would play blocks and things like that with us, like, so he is a good dad too. We have very different parenting styles. I'm a lot more protective, just I'm more disciplinarian. I'm more into like, okay, like here's like mentoring, like, all these different things. And he's into like having fun and talking sports and, playing fantasy football and video games with them, like they have their own relationships. And so, I remember when I hit that pinnacle stage in 2020 where I just simply was like, this can't be it. Like, I can't do this anymore. One of the things that had happened was I also realized like this relationship is just not fueling me. Like it is draining me just every time when I'm in his presence. Like, I remember until like 2021, I like had told him, you have never apologized to me for cheating on me. And he's like, yes, I did. And I was like, no, you never did. And he's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And like after he could finally, like for years I had said like, you've never apologized to me for that. And in the beginning he would say, well, how long are you going to hold over my head? And eventually like it took some time. Like I remember thinking about the affair 30 times a day. And then eventually went to 15, and then eventually, 5, and then eventually 1 time a day. And then I was like, oh wow, I only thought of it twice this week. It was definitely a process. And like I remember like wanting to like look in his wallet or look in his pockets, and I was like, listen, if you're going to be with somebody and you have to do all that, like, are you going to do this? Is this sustainable for you for the rest of your life? If he's going to do what he's going to do, regardless if you look and find it or whatever, it's on him, like I had said, like, I would just hope you would give me the decency if you decide to do something like that to let me know so that I can make my decisions. So, we've lived our life, and I'm not saying I resented him, but I definitely was hurt. I remember when he did come back, like he would hold Karina or play with Brad and but primarily with Karina, he would play with her and hold her and be like, you're the reason. And I'd be like, wait, what are you saying? And he was like, nothing. And it was just like, and I get it. Like if it was the reason and maybe he wanted me to know that, like it wasn't because of me that he was coming back. Like, and if he wanted me to know, he did let me know. I wish it would have been in a more direct way, but he is a very passive aggressive person. That is like kind of where he's comfortable. So yeah, I mean, the relationship has been definitely very like dysfunctional and volatile, but we did like in 2020 give it another go. We were like, okay, like let's go all in. Let's try therapy, because I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like this is just like what really started the set off mentally before I even got to 2020, which wasn't much before, was Betty's passing. So Betty passed in 2019. And watching this strong woman who never took care of herself kind of demise in front of my eyes was just, you had a lot of time. It was weird because I would just sit with her for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes we would talk, but sometimes she could not talk. And many times she couldn't physically talk anymore. And I remember just sitting there, and I remember looking at her, and I remember thinking to myself, if I would know I only had 100 hours left to live, what would I do? Or 100 days? What would I do? And I thought to myself, who do I want to be with? Like, what things do I want to experience? And am I experiencing any of those? Am I with those people? Because the truth of the matter is, maybe it is my last 100 hours and I'm just not privileged to know that. And so I kept asking myself, like, if I only have 100 hours left to live, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I would ask myself, and I was just like, it was like, I would like be meditating on this. And I was just like, I wrote it on a post-it note. Like, it was like a reminder to almost like appreciate life, to spend time, like to learn the things I want to learn, to practice the things I want to practice at getting better at, and, you know, to communicate better in my relationships, to tell the people I love them while I can, to like have gratitude for everything from, you know, the blue skies to the, you know, shoes on my feet, like just to be gracious, like walking down the halls and just like looking and seeing, you know, sad faces is like, wait a minute, I could just smile and maybe make somebody's day, or maybe I won't, but like, I don't know, when somebody walks past me and smiles, it changes my mood. So I started like smiling past everybody I'd walk by. I remember just like thinking like, I can change. And the things that like, that are going wrong, like this, like it's unforeseen, it's unwanted, like, but there is a very huge and important lesson in this experience. And right now it's Betty, and I'm not saying that I'm going to have the same, you know, disease or, you know, incurable tumors or anything. And Lord, please, I do not want that. But there is no difference between her and I, and the fact that one day I will be here and I will wake up that morning, and the next morning I will not wake up. And I don't know when that will be. And so, you know, it became very obvious to me that, as we are only aware of, and I know if you're spiritual or think different things, right? We can all have different beliefs, maybe reincarnation or whatever. But as far as I'm aware, as far as I am aware, I have one shot at this life as Natasha, the mother of 4 kids, a business owner, a free thinker, somebody who's always wanting to learn, somebody who wants to help people, somebody who wants to educate and motivate and inspire people. Like, I get one shot at this. And so if I'm using that time and I'm using it to like think about the things that I don't like and dwell on the things that I don't like, but not yet doing anything about it, is that how I want to be spending it? No, I want to be spending it doing things I love. I want to be spending it with people I love. I want to be spending it with people that love me, that understand at the root of all me is kindness. Like, I know there may be times that I hurt Chris, but that is never the intent. I'm never sitting to thinking, how can I hurt him today? Or even my kids, or anybody for this matter. It's like, if I wake up in that morning, I'm not like, yay, how can I really mess my kids up today and make sure they're in therapy? No, never. It's, you want the best for them. You want the best for your family. You want the best for your friends. You want the best for strangers. You know, like, I'm never like looking out my window and like, I hope this person trips on a stick right now. You know, like, no, I don't think like that. I hope nobody does. But, you know, you just want to be spreading kindness and happiness and goodness out in this world. And, you know, Chris and I are very different people. And, you know, he loves to stay in and watch TV, and I love to like go out and talk with people. And, you know, he has a very like fixed mindset. I have a very like growth mindset. Like, anything is possible. Everything is possible. Like, you know, oh, you know, like, and the things I say piss him off, and, you know, maybe out of frustration because he doesn't understand me. And the things he says piss me off because I don't understand it either. You know, like, no, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to only be this way, you know? And it's up for debate, but not in a good way. Not in a way like I'm trying to get to know you and understand your perspective. It's more of like, we're at odds with each other all the time. It's not like we're on the same team, working on the same problem, having 2 different approaches. It's like we are on opposing teams, you know? It's like, I remember like oftentimes, like I would say, you know, he'd come home complaining like, oh my gosh, the kids haven't done their chores. And I'd be like, okay, well, you know, why don't you ask them to do it? Because usually it would be me. And he would be like, hey guys, your mom wants you to do your chores. So it was just a very much like he always wanted to be their friend. He didn't want to be like their disciplinarian. He didn't want to be the bad guy in any of these situations. And so like, you know, we're just very different. And what we do have in common is our kids, and we adore our kids. And so that's the tough part. And that's the place where we find ourselves now. And you know, like a lot of the communication beyond like our therapy sessions, or beyond like what's for dinner, or, you know, can you pick this up at the store, or who's taking who to what activity, is kind of ceased. And, you know, we haven't shared a bedroom in a couple of years. And even prior to that, like throughout the majority of our marriage, we have not. Like, so, you know, it's very interesting time, you know. And even yesterday, and he's said this before, he's the type of person, like when he gets overwhelmed, will kind of like be like, we're done, we're over this. But there was something different about the way he said it yesterday. Was like, I just can't take much more of this. Like, I don't want to be sleeping on the sofa anymore. I don't, you know, like, and I get it. And I look at him and I feel really sad, because I don't want him to be sleeping on the sofa either. And I want him, he's a person, like, I like being alone now, because I get so much work done. I get so much like thought done, or I get nothing done. Like, I don't mind being alone. Like, I think, and even when I'm alone, I'm such an outgoing person that like, I will strike up conversations with everybody and anybody. Like that, you know, it's not I don't feel intimidated to do so. So I'm never really alone if I don't want to be. I know that there is a whole world out there available for me. But he is not that way. And so it makes me very sad to see him sad, and to see him not getting his needs met, that before I was willing to compromise mine in order to make him happy. Because again, I thought now the happiness of 5 was much greater than the unhappiness of 1. And so it became my job to be the martyr and deal with a less than desirable, you know, relationship with my spouse, and in order to make everybody happy. So it was like I conceded, you know, if he was sad, I didn't, you know, bring anything up. If I, you know, explain like, hey, it makes me, you know, when you do this, I feel this because this, you know, in the future, can you, it would be helpful if you help, you know, did this or whatever it was. You know, I did all the right things, so I thought. And like, you know, if I heard that, if he heard something that, you know, hurt me, he would yell at me and, you know, make it my fault, or say I did it too. And then, you know, and before I used to take offense, and now I'm just like, I don't take offense anymore. Like, or before I would just be like, oh, I can't say anything because I don't want to upset him. And now I'm kind of at the point that I'm like, I have to be honest and give him these opportunities to understand who I really am, and either choose to make changes, which I'm not asking him to do. Just like nobody asked me to make my changes. And if I was making a change because of Chris, I was making a change for Chris or for my kids or for anybody else, it simply wouldn't be sustainable, in my opinion. So like, you have to like do it for yourself. You have to decide like you really want this in order for it to continue, because it's really hard and it's really painful. And if I was doing it for somebody else, at some point I would be like, it's just not worth it. But when you do things for yourself, like you feel this extra like empowerment, this extra pride, this extra like, I did that. Like, you know, that like sitting here and doing this, like to me, I don't even know if this will ever make it on air or whatever it is, but this is day 8 and I did that. Like, I could have done anything I wanted in this time. And I decided to stick with my commitment and hopefully reach somebody, one person even, and that says like, hey, I've had an experience like this, or I know somebody who had something, or even like learn from this, or I don't want to have this experience. What can I do differently to not be in that situation? So yeah, so I don't know the status of my marriage. And so, you know, like I said, this is going to be a very vulnerable and open platform for me, which is kind of like scary, because I'm a very private person when it comes to like a lot of my life. Like, people wouldn't know, like even before, you know, like my cousin and I were very close, and you know, she would talk about, you know, all the problems she was having in her marriage. And then I remember she'd be like, but you never complain or say anything about Chris. But if I know you guys are having problems. If I'm over, I know you guys are having problems, but you never complain about it. And I was like, well, that's because, like, twofold. Like, number one, if I talk about it, it makes it real. Like, I don't even want to live it on the first place. So, like, to have to keep continually reliving it, it just sounds like torture. And number two is, like, even though you do come into our inner sanctum and you do see, like, I do like to keep this illusion that everything is fine. Everything is okay. It's going to be fine. It's going to be okay. Because there's a part of me that believes it is. Like, the abusive aspects of our relationship, no, that's not okay. That's not what I'm saying. But, like, in general, overall, everything is going to be okay. So whatever does end up happening with Chris and I, it's going to be okay. And, you know, like I say, he's a good person. I'm a good person. And I think that for me to imagine living the same way, which we've been in therapy for a few years now. And there have been times when he was all in and I was like, I can really see this working. I could really see us turning this around and it working. And then all the rest of the time, which was the majority of the time since then, has been him and I equally feeling tension, on edge when we're in a room with one another. And it shows, like, our answers are short with each other. There's just not a lot of compassion. Like, you know, I say something and it's just looking for, like, the word to be like, oh, yep, see, that's why you want to leave. You know, like, or vice versa, is like, he's just looking to attack me. Like, and it's mutual. Like, we're just both not good. And it's not that we're not trying to, and it's not that we haven't got better. Our therapist is wonderful, but it's like, there's like a block. Like, there's a homework assignment. We'll do it for like a couple days or a week, and then something happens and we stop doing it. And we're both adults and we're both responsible. And so, you know, we could both at any point say, hey, we haven't done it this week or 2 weeks. Like, you want to do it? You want to check in? You want to play a game? You want to do something? But yet we continue to choose not. And, you know, for me, that speaks volumes. You know, I remember, like, even last night, like, after he had, you know, said, you know, he was experiencing some of his own things I won't go into. And then he was like, you know, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live here anymore. You know, I even later on tried to talk with him and was like, oh, this and this and this. And it was just kind of like, no answer, no anything. And I'm such a communicator that it's a struggle for me, because, like, I don't have this partner to like check in with. And even when I try, like, I get rejected and or made to feel like a fool because I feel this way or I think this way. And I know, like, I fully get, like, the way I think it is not like the everyday average. Like, I believe everything is possible, and I believe that it does take, it's not like you sit around and wish, like, oh, I'm going to be whatever it is, a pilot. I'm going to be a pilot. Like, I'm thinking anything is possible. I can fly, you know, like, no, it also takes a lot of work too, and commitment and a plan and action and mistakes and pivoting and moving and adjusting and an open mind. And so I'm not like unrealistic that I think that you could just visualize everything into life. But I do think that there is this holistic synchronicity that can go on from many different aspects. And, you know, like, if you're meditating on something, if you're working towards it, like, it becomes a lot of your focus. And again, where your focus goes, energy flows. And I just want to say, like, I don't know. And I'm sure there's many people out there in that situation, and there's a piece of me, you know, who is the person who is that little kid who wanted her parents to stay together, that wants to stay together for my kids. But then there's also now becoming, and that was like my primary driving force for so many years, but now there's a piece of me inside, that like inner child of me, which I'll get into that another day. I have these 3 photos I recently found, and they sit on my dresser, which I know I still found. They were like little kid photos that like were there. There's very rare. I have very few pictures of me as a kid, because my mom had taken most of them, and then they got lost in a storage. Like the storage got lost, not paid for. And then there was a photo album, and then it was given to me, but then my brother wanted it to scan in the photos, and then he's had it and made this big deal, didn't talk to me for years. And so I gave him the photo album, you know, as like my, I'll do anything, you know, I'll be my friend, love me, I'll give you the photo album. And I've never got it back. And so he hasn't. But anyway, so long story short, and my brother doesn't like me anymore, so it's probably burnt, because he was like, I don't even know why I wanted this. It's all mostly pictures of you, first child. This particular photo album was me. It was probably one of the other ones my mom took, because he was a mama's boy. She probably took all the pictures of him. I don't know. But anyways, where was I going with that? I was talking about the pictures. I literally forgot what I was saying. I got off on the tangent about the dang. Oh, I found the pictures of me. Thank you. Pictures. Anyways, so I found 3 pictures of me from when I was a little kid. And I was like, oh my God. Like, if 3 pictures were ever taken of me, like to describe who I am, these 3 right here sum it up. And so, like I've been often like doing these things because it was like I'm kind of like a visual or metaphorical, or like I need some kind of like a like something to like look at. So I put these pictures out. I started thinking about how, like, you know, I'll get into that whole one another day too. But I put these pictures out and I look at her, and like right now, like a lot of my decisions are like, what does she want? Like, if that little girl right now, like, stop and listen, like, what does she want? What does she want to do? Like, or if somebody's talking to her, like, for example, Chris, like, that is not acceptable. Like, I say, like, as it's happening, I'm like, if somebody was talking to her that way, what would you do? Would you sit there and just allow this to happen? Or would you intervene? You would intervene. So he is talking to you like that. That is you. You and her are one and the same. Stand up for yourself. Intervene. You don't have to yell. You don't have to scream. You don't have to be mean, but you need to stand up for yourself. Get out of this situation. Do not allow somebody to mistreat you. And I know he has his own things that he's going through, and I'm very sympathetic. I'm very sorry. Like, he has had a very hard life as well. Like, no shade or anything there on that. But that doesn't mean that, like, we need to torture each other for the rest of time. It doesn't mean that way. And there are people that, well, I'm okay to be alone. But if he needs to be with somebody, there are many women out there that will love to have his attention and love to watch shows. So I don't know where we are at this juncture, and I'm sure it's going to evolve, and you're going to come along on the journey with me. But just be nice. And if I'm awkward when it comes into how to say, I don't know what to refer to him as. So I thank you guys for listening to me today. I am so excited to be doing this. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.